mostly by being too smart for their own good. And then he reflects back on Robert McNamara and the Vietnam era whiz kids who thought they'd reduced war to an exact science. And then he says, but from Michelle Bachmann to Herman Cain, the outsiders haven't risen even to this challenge. What you see in today's Republican primary campaign is a reaction to these by trying to be dumber than everyone else. He writes, it will do America no good to replace the arrogant with the ignorant. His words, not mine, although I share in them. He goes on, it does us no good to replace the overconfident with the incompetent. We need intelligent leaders with a sense of their own limits, experienced people whose lives have taught them caution. We still need the best and brightest, but we need them to have learned somehow some humility along the way. And that's why I point you back to Muhammad and to Moses and to Jesus, who are great leaders. And yet in their scriptures we learn of their humility, their doubts, their struggles, their insecurities. And I want us to think about who out there has the wisdom, the maturity to dare to be humble in today's climate, because we all know that we need bold, courageous leadership in these troubled times. There's a poem in our book. It's called Counsels. It's by Marge Piercy. I think about this because it talks about how we should, perhaps when we get together, meet in councils in the dark. I'm going to look it up for you if I can while I'm talking. I forgot to mark it before I got into the pulpit. See, I'm being humble right in front of you, right here. And it's good that I do that because I'm not good at pretending to be more than I am. I think it's 585. You can't read it, but I think it's good to hear the words from time to time. She writes, perhaps we should sit in the dark. In the dark we could utter our feelings. In the dark we could propose and describe and suggest. In the dark we would not see who speaks, and only the words would say what they say. No one would speak more than twice, and no one would speak less than once. Perhaps we could begin to listen. The women must learn to dare to speak. The men must learn to bother to listen. The women must learn to say, I think this is so. And here comes a beautiful line. The men must learn to stop dancing solos on the ceiling. But here is the most important part. After each speaks, she or he would say a ritual phrase. It is not I who speaks, but the wind. Wind blows through me. Long after me is the wind. And this is where I want us to go for the rest of this morning. The idea of the wind. I told you about ruach. Now I know we don't all agree about God's present or absent, or what they look like if they do exist, or if one is, or what they say. But I think we have each had experiences when suddenly we felt that there was something larger at work than our own minds. Choruses know this. I'm going to point to you. I point to my own chorus if you weren't here. I'm guessing that for some of you, if not most of you, the best part is the blending together. The sense of being part of something larger than yourself. And that when it's really good and you're singing, you can't even hear your own voice because it fits in so well. Am I guessing right? That's what ruach is. When you are singing, but the song is bigger than you. I used to be a musician. I'm a failed musician, in fact, because I didn't have the chops to make it work as a career. But I used to play the trombone and the tuba. Not famous for solo work, by the way, and I'm happy with that. And I loved the moments best when I was playing my heart out and I couldn't hear myself because the music took me in and it became larger. When I was no longer creating music, but it was literally coming from somewhere I did not know and going out my instrument, and I wasn't even trying to make it. When I was in the midst of something splendid. The key to this experience is that it not only lifts you up into realms of beauty, it puts you back down into realms of humility. It's not about you at all. And you're okay with that. That's part of the experience. I'm okay being a bit player in a great play. I'm okay being invisible in a great orchestra. I'm okay. I'm content. I am complete. Not when I am the focus of things, but am part of something bigger than myself. In the early morning service, I said, as I've said to you, I consider myself a Pentecostal liberal. I like that. I get a laugh from that every time. Partly because I'm upending, if you say, that the reputation of a Pentecostal as an out-of-control, frenzied, dogmatic holy roller. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But liberals like us have a reputation for being rather cerebral, thoughtful, discursive, skeptical, a little reluctant to let go and get religion. I've told the story more than once of a great downtown church in a great city where people like us, shall we say, attended. And a woman of color came to church that morning with her hat and her gloves. She was almost alone of her race, as we used to say. And she was shown to a seat in the church. And the preacher began to preach. And as he was trying to get up to speed, she shouted out, "Preach it, brother!" And everybody in the church looked behind to see where it was coming from. And when he said something good, she'd say, "Amen!" And people would look around with a harsh look on her face. And eventually the usher with the boutonniere, they all have boutonnieres back then, remember, came up to her and in a very gracious, very refined way said, "Madam, is there anything wrong?" And she replied, "There ain't nothing wrong with me. I've just got religion." To which the usher replied, "Oh, madam, we don't do that here." I absolutely believe it is time for liberals to get religion, to lose their sense of propriety, because it's the propriety, the intellectuality, the skepticism, the sedateness, the refinement that pinches us down into ears and eyes and leaves off the hands and the heart and the tongue and the taste, the part of you that is all of you. I want you all to have the experiences I have had as a musician, sometimes here in this pulpit, of being swept up by something larger than yourself, carried along, singing a song you did not write, doing something great you did not think, and feel as though you are more alive than you've ever been in your life. I want that Pentecostal moment for you, because if we just sit here talking about the world and do not live in it, then we are to be put aside. We become a museum of a time not only past, but a time best forgotten. It is time for us to get religion, because I need you to be humble. I need you to know the humiliating presence of holiness. Not the kind that gets you up to dance around. That's showplace Pentecostalism. What I want you to feel is what George Fox felt when he came before the King of England and said, "You should quake before the Lord," from which we get the word Quaker, by the way, reminding us that when we are truly present in front of something majestic and powerful and larger than ourselves, we should tremble. Every Sunday I get into this pulpit and hope that I leave it trembling with the sense that I have touched upon something or allowed something to touch me that is greater than me. It is not about me or even about you, but about life itself, about truth itself. All I know is that when I feel this presence, I feel something that William Wordsworth discovered, a piece that I discovered years ago. It's a beautiful phrase. He writes this, "And I have felt a presence that disturbs me." He felt a disturbing presence, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns and the round ocean and the living air, a motion and a spirit that impels all things, all objects, and rolls through all things. Have you ever felt that? Of course you have. You want it again. I want it again. We even want it in church, God bless us.